I'd like to call the order of the Board of Supervisors meeting for March 17th, 2020. And our first order of business after the Pledge of Allegiance will be the adoption of the agenda. But Mrs. Oates, would you please allow us to stand so we can have the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first thing that we need, the first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to respectfully request that the board consider adding a declaration of local emergency to the agenda. And I think we would like to have that possibly read. So I don't know if you want to possibly add that as item maybe M1.
Is there any, we need to vote on that, correct?
I can take that into the agenda if you will, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt the agenda as presented with the addition as claimed by Mr. Stanley.
I second that.
Any discussion at all? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is the public comment period. That is a 45-minute time limit. This is for the public to give any input on items that are on the agenda, but not on the subject of public hearing. One of the things that we need to discuss just before we get this started is that we've had situations to where people have been called names. We have had situations to where groups have been called names, and we would like to eliminate that. We need to be respectful in every way that we can, and we need to help each other through this. This is a tough time for all of us. So I would just appreciate any public comment to be directed towards the agenda and not towards individual people or groups, and leave the name calling out if I could, please. Mrs. Mouse, anything on the...
Yes, Mr. Dennis Willingham.
Dennis Willingham, 792 Old Belmont Road, Front Royal. And I just want to comment on the Stanley's contract coming up. I feel we need to liberate this because he has done anything that cost us money from day one. Just like the bogus charges they had when you had him out here, all this stuff about the EDA, he was laughing coming out of the jail knowing that it's bogus, and so it cost us money. So he's not, right now, he has not done us any good whatsoever. Anything he's done, he's cost us all money all the way along. So I feel that he's not qualified to do this job. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Melanie Salins.
Melanie Salins, 95 Murray's Drive. I wanted to start by thanking all the new board members. You've brought a fresh perspective, and I really like what I've been hearing. I think the county is really turning a corner, which is very important because the faith of the citizens is being restored, that we're going to come through what has happened to us. Unfortunately, I believe that the damage has already been done with the citizens' faith in Mr. Stanley. And I would ask that you not renew his contract. The bottom line is we've experienced a major scandal, and he was the boss when it happened. So if we want to close this chapter and move forward, we have to start with a clean slate. I would also ask that moving forward with whomever holds the seat as county administrator going forward, I would encourage you to rewrite the contract. I have several concerns with the contract as a document as it stands currently, and I would just encourage you to restructure it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary Kushner.
Gary Kushner, 1106 Fetchit Road, downtown. Good evening, all. The previous board and this board now has undoubtedly received public feedback that many are not pleased with the performance and sometimes the attitude of our county administrator. I believe at times he seemed attached and arrogant. He is sometimes not given an appropriate level of attention to public concerns while consistently guarding the establishment. I am one of those voices representing dissatisfaction. I believe the administrator is part of the business as usual establishment, where government has continually grown, especially over the past 6 years, when real estate taxes were increased annually, including a rate increase of 10% in the current budget year. I doubt there are many citizens whose income has increased at the pace our government has grown. I believe he's out of touch with the public and might be part of the old boys network that is not representative of the leadership that citizens want and deserve. Considering the breadth of issues and initiatives that the administrator has been associated with on a daily basis, I can't help but wonder why he wasn't able to notice some of the odd happenings at the EDA and raise questions and possibly limit some of the effects we've ultimately witnessed. I think many department heads under the administrator may have become complacent in trying to improve and expand their services by relying on more revenue from the citizens rather than finding ways to increase productivity and do more with existing resources. They've not been adequately managed to focus on addressing their core missions using existing resources rather than expecting that there will always be more money available. Having new leadership would be a wake-up call to all in our government that the public is not an endless money tree, and their effectiveness will be measured with how much productivity they can create with limited resources. I am also seriously alarmed at the level of support the administrator exhibited for the recent Crooked Run West project, when the facts ultimately showed such a proposal would have been a disaster for the county citizens in terms of its budget impact, reduced public safety, and an overall degradation in our quality of life. I have to acknowledge, though, that the administrator's efforts have sometimes been valuable, and he has amassed a substantial amount of historical knowledge in his almost 2 decades of service. But even so, that does not make up for shortcomings that exist. Plus, no one person is indispensable, and losing some institutional knowledge does not have to be a barrier to achieving progress on any issue or the challenges we may face in the future. A majority of this board was elected with a citizen mandate to change government's direct trajectory back to a conservative, core mission focus versus the expansion that has occurred. The best way forward to achieving that is by obtaining new leadership who will come in with eyes wide open, without preconceived ideas, biases, or special interest alignments. Thus, I ask that you vote no on a motion to extend the contract with the existing administrator. Thank you.
Any additional people?
There's no one else signed up for the agenda.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on the agenda? Yes, sir, Mr. Ronaldo.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Board. Emily, I signed up on the wrong sheet, so when you see, sorry about that. there were some good speakers here tonight that brought up some good points. And for once, I'm going to be in the minority here. I'm going to speak in favor of Mr. Stanley. And the reason for that is, I've worked with him for the last 20 years. When he was the zoning administrator, he got rid of a junkyard that was in Shenandoah Farms. I mean, it just wasn't trash. It was used cars, taken apart for parts, etc. Oil being spilt on the ground. And Mr. Stanley took it. It's serious, our complaints about that area. And he got it taken care of. It took a while, but he didn't give up. So he's very persistent. I've had dealings with him as chairman of the property owners of Shenandoah Farms. Next to Front Royal, Shenandoah Farms is the most populous area in Warren County. So there's been a lot of back and forth with him on that. I will say he's a tough negotiator because I never did win any of those discussions. He was looking out for the county, I believe. Now, some of the speakers spoke of things that, the Crooked Run project, things like that. Those things come up, and it's kind of a tough situation to maybe blame one person for. And the speakers made their points very well. And Mr. Mabe, I appreciate your comments prior to the meeting of this section of the agenda, so that hopefully nobody will call me some names. So thank you very much for that. And like I say, I didn't write anything down, I didn't prepare anything, but I can tell you that in my dealings with Stanley, he's always been professional, he's been fair, and I believe, and there's people that disagree with me, of course, but I believe he had the county's interest at heart. And with that, I would ask you to consider some options with this contract. Maybe extend it for 1 year. I know what it's like to be a new member of a board, and you're playing a lot of, I know I am on the school board, we're playing a lot of catch up. They're doing their best to indoctrinate me to bring me up to speed. And with Mr. Stanley's ability to coach people, you may want to consider one option of maybe extending his contract for a year with that option, so that he can continue to coach you guys up. I know he's been doing that. So with that in mind, I would ask that you think about this and give it some thought. It's a tough decision. I wouldn't want to have to make it. So, but that's why you're sitting up there. So anyway, thanks for the time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks for speaking, Mr. Long. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? Mr. Baggerly?
Earl Bagley, 327 Liberty Hall Road, Front Royal, Virginia, 22630. I'm totally opposite of this gentleman that just spoke before me, and I'm all for the ones that spoke before him. Every blind hoe can find an acorn once in a while, but that hoe has cost this county a lot of money and deception and a poor administrator. It seems like to me it's for him and a few, and for the taxpayers of Warren County to foot the bill. And that's why y'all were elected a new board to change this thing. And I asked you tonight to stand up and change it. All of you. You know what's right. Let's do the right thing. Thank you.
Appreciate you speaking, Mr. Baggerly. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Nice hat.
Happy St. Paddy's Day. I'm Linda McDonough. I live at 1205 High Top Road, Linden, Virginia. And I've been involved with Mr. Stanley for years when we were trying to get the Shenandoah Farms situation taken care of. And there were some rough issues and we had problems and stuff like that, but I just don't agree that he would be the person that I want the new board members to be coached by. Yes, he has a lot of information, he's been here 20 years, but it doesn't mean that somebody else can't come in and do the same thing. I believe that people shouldn't have a position like he's had for 20 years. Maybe in the beginning you start out all bright and sunshine and everything, and then eventually you might be looking a different way, or they keep putting so much more on their plate, and things get mixed up and stuff, and I just don't agree. I am not for Mr. Stanley and having his contract renewed at all. Thank you very much.
Thanks for speaking. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on the agenda? Anyone that would like to speak on the agenda? If not, last call. The agenda for the public comment period is now closed. Next on our agenda is the fiscal year 2018-2019 audit presentation. Matthew McLaren and with Robinson Farmer Cox Associates.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Matthew McLaren. I am with Robinson Farmer Cox Associates, and tonight I have with me Michael Lupton, who's the director on the audit engagement. We're going to present the FY19 audit results and review some of the information that's contained in that non-financial report that I believe each of you have, at least in hard copy and a PDF copy that was provided sometime last week. Before we get started on the actual financial report, there we go.
Right, there we go.
So an overview of the presentation real quickly. I'm going to review the required communications between an auditor and a government body. There are standard communications that are in a 2-page letter that may or may not be included in the information that you have before you, but I will review the points in that letter. And then we will also review the audit process, and we're going to talk a little bit about the financial information that's contained in that document. Stand on the side. So again, starting with the required communications, there's a 2.5-page letter. I'm going to start with the first point there. The first, Mike, if you want to advance the slide, please. Responsibilities under the audit management or the auditee of the county is required to provide financial records to be audited, required to maintain internal controls, talk a little bit about internal controls during the audit process, and accept responsibility for the financial statements. The auditor, of course, is required to examine those internal controls, test account balances, test those controls, test compliance. As with most governments, there are extensive compliance requirements, either from the federal government or state government, and to apply on the financial statements. The next item disclosed in this letter charged with communications to the government body of difficulties encountered performing the audit. An example would be incomplete records or the inability to access records that we would need to complete the audit. Please report there were no difficulties in gathering the information necessary to complete the audit process. The third item is corrected and uncorrected misstatements. Most audits have proposed audit adjustments. If those audit adjustments are posted and included financial report that we've issued, those are considered corrected misstatements. If we find adjustments or misstatements that are proposed and not included in this financial report, those are considered uncorrected misstatements. And those uncorrected misstatements are required to be disclosed under professional standards. And please report that audit adjustments for the fiscal year 19 were posted and included in the financial report that you have before you. The fourth item is disagreements with management applying accounting principles. There were none. The fifth item is management's consultation with another auditor. This is also called opinion shopping. This is something that's required in professional standards. If there was a modified opinion that was issued in the financial statement, we're supposed to disclose our knowledge that management has sought the second opinion of another audit firm. And then lastly, any significant matters that affected the financial report, and we have listed there disclaimer of opinion on the EDA financial statements. As you may or may not know, the EDA is a separate audit. It's audited by another CPA firm. We've not been contracted to do that piece. And because they are related to the county just in the scope of disclosure, there are brief excerpts that are generally in the financial report. Because that audit has not been completed, those auditors did not provide that information, so we've disclaimed on that. But again, I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. In the bound financial report and even the PDF, there are 4 sections to this report. There's an introductory section, a financial section, statistical section, and a compliance section. Our review tonight will focus mainly on sections 2, 3, and 4. For fiscal year 19, there are actually 2 official opinions from the auditors from issued in So the first of those 2 opinions is the unmodified opinion on the county and school board's financial statement. Unmodified is a clean opinion in the financial statements. They're materially presented as documented in the financial report that you have there. And the reason I mentioned there are 2 opinions in this financial statement, it's necessary to issue one on the county and school board, which is the engagement that we've been contracted for. And the second opinion, I'm doing that, but anyway, I apologize. The second opinion is a disclaimer opinion. As I briefly mentioned, the EDA information is audited by another firm. That information is generally provided to us in a summary format. That information was not provided, and therefore we've issued a disclaimer of opinion because this has been omitted from this financial report. So that's why there are two opinions there. Just to talk a little bit about the audit process, Michael's going to join me. I'm just going to give an overview of what our audit engagement includes. It certainly includes all the county departments, includes the treasurer's office, the school board, and social services. They are all considered one sort of audit engagement. They are included in the scope of our testing. Our testing includes the testing of internal controls. We examine individually significant items. So we have a threshold, and we look at every item expended in excess of a threshold that we determine materially significant to the financial statements for that fiscal year. We examine bank account reconciliations, detailed testing of material general ledger account balances, and again, just a lot of tests on internal controls. Internal controls is probably the most important piece to any governing body's financial reporting structure. Internal controls provide that segregation of duties between the financial reporting, the routine transaction reporting, the cash management, and other important areas to ensure that the finances are in correct order. And with an organization the size of the county, there are multiple internal control structures. So a lot of our testing is focused on that piece of the audit. We want to look at, make sure there's proper segregation of duties. Of course, you have the treasurer's function, you have the finance office function, of course, the school board has their own finance function, and even social services has a separate finance function. So there's, in a county government setting, there's quite a few different internal controls and segregation of duties that we do examine as part of the audit process. Michael, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just in
as part of testing internal controls, that when we come in, we test the internal controls, it allows us to utilize the element of surprise in our audit procedures when we select the samples. Management doesn't have an understanding or have an idea up front about what we're going to be looking at or what we're going to be testing in that regard. Moving on to the financial statements, financial section of the CAFR that you will have there. The management's discussion and analysis is on pages 25 and 33. It's a narrative overview of the financial report. It's prepared by the county's finance director and department and the county administrator. Spent a good amount of time putting this together to provide summarized information that is easier to read than a 200-page financial report. It also provides brief analysis of financial data and it also has comparisons to the prior year. The first financial statement to draw attention to is Exhibit 3. That's on page 44 of the financial report that you all have. Basically, the Exhibit 3 is prepared on the modified accrual basis, which is the same basis that you all use to draft the county's budget. At the end of the fiscal year, the combined ending balances for the governmental funds was around $42 million. General fund balance was approximately $19 million. Of that, unassigned fund balance was approximately $12 million, and unassigned and committed combined accounted for approximately $31.5 million. All three categories available for appropriation at discretion of the board. Exhibit 5 on page 46 provides a financial statement that shows the change in fund balance from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. Again, the combined fund balance increased by $4.3 million in FY19. That was primarily due to issuance of revenue bonds to finance Ressie Jeffries Elementary School Health and Human Services Complex and Rivermont Fire Station. And a brief analysis of the change in fund balance can be found in the management's discussion and analysis that we referenced previously. The next slide is a bar graph of the makeup of fund balance. It's kind of hard to see there on the screen, but there are three separate colors, one representing restricted fund balance, the orangish color representing committed fund balance, and the light green color representing unassigned fund balance. As you can see in fiscal year 2019, the largest part or makeup of the fund balance was the committed fund balance, and that was mostly made of the Special Projects Fund for capital improvements, which was approximately $18.5 million. And detail of what makes that up can be found in note 14 of the financial statements. If I could just point out real quickly, there's a hierarchy of reporting fund balance. So those categories that you see there, restricted, committed, and unassigned, are in accordance with professional reporting standards. It's intended to allow the reader to segregate what is restricted for a specific purpose. So generally, you see restricted, the large amounts there are bond proceeds that come in 1 year and they're spent the next year. So they're really intended for one-time use or used for a project that it's issued for. So it's kind of natural to see that flow of the ebb and flow there of the fund balance totals, but it's kind of important to focus on the individual colors. So that light green there and the reddish orange there that's on the screen. Those are the committed and unassigned balances that are, as Michael discussed, available for appropriation for future use of restricted. Again, it's just following mostly debt proceeds as they go up from there.
Need to speak into the microphone so it picks up on the video, please.
Next slide is a representation of general fund expenditures relating to fund balance. The line represents the general fund expenditures excluding capital projects, and the bars at the bottom represent the fund balance. And as you can see, the increase in general fund expenditures is supported by the increase in the general fund balance as it continues into fiscal year 2019. Just a couple of other general fund statistics. A useful financial indicator is the percentage of fund balance to expenditures. We've provided the last 4 years of fund balance as a percentage of expenditures.
As you can see, it ranges from 18% to 25% in FY 2019. And basically, that's in line with what we see in internal policies in other local governments and benchmarks that we see. It's typically between 15% and 25% in that range. And then there below is the last 4 years of general fund revenues. As you can see, increase in each year from over the last 4 years. The next section of the financial report is the statistical section. And it provides historical trend data of selected financial categories and other operating information. That can be found on pages 175 through 196 of the financial report package that you all have there. On to a couple of the major statistical items that we've noted here for the presentation. There is a line graph here representing the major expenditure categories over the last 6 years and how those have trended over those years. As you can see, there's a consistent trend for most all expenditures with an increase in education-related expenditures over the last couple of years. And the last statistical item we'd like to show you is the makeup of the major revenue categories. Again, most of the revenues are consistently trending from 1 year to the next, while general property taxes increases each year, starting with the beginning of 2014 all the way through 2019. I'm sorry, I lied about the statistical information, that being the last one. This is a representation of the debt percentage of total as a percentage of total tax assessments. As you can see, it hovers right around 2.5%, meaning total debt, outstanding debt is approximately 2.5% of total real property tax assessment value. And though it's not necessarily applicable to counties, the Code of Virginia does stipulate that towns and cities should maintain an outstanding debt balance less than 10% of total real property. So that's just a good, I guess, measure as it relates to in comparison for the percentage that we're representing here. In the final part, section of the financial report package that you have is the compliance section. The first item that you'll see is the auditor's report on internal control and compliance. That's on pages 197 to 198. I'm pleased to report that we don't have, we noted no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses during our audit in relation to the report on internal control and compliance. Additionally, the report on uniform guidance compliance, which is the federal compliance piece of the audit, we did not note any instances of non-compliance over federal grants audited in fiscal year 2019.
So that concludes our remarks. We're happy to answer any questions that the board may have at this time.
Any questions from my board?
I have one. So you made a point of the disclaimer with the EDA, and the EDA is a separate legal entity. So can you explain to me why you would make that disclaimer in conjunction with the county's budget?
Sure. Yeah, certainly. So in governmental financial reporting, there's something called a primary government and a component unit. So component units are considered, can be considered legally separate entities as such for the EDA, but because of their relation to the primary government, they include excerpts from their financial report, their audit, are included in the primary government. So it's a governmental county standards board requirement that says any outside entity that has some sort of natural relation or serves some sort of purpose to the primary government, whether it be financial, social, or whatever, it would be included, at least in summary format, in that primary government.
Does the lack of audit impact the county's credit rating, the county's ability to obtain credit?
You know, it's certainly not part of the bond rating agency and
Right.
not legal counsel, so it's kind of hard for me to say yes or no on that, to be quite honest with you. There are two opinions in there, so I think it's kind of important to segregate the county and school board, which is, of course, the primary government component that we audited. But whether it has any impact, I would defer that to those that are in that market and that business.
Okay. Thank you for your answers. I appreciate it.
I have one, if you will. In layman's terms, how would you evaluate this audit that you was presented as far as what kind of shape, what kind of condition is the county financially in?
Yeah, I think as Michael spoke about some of those the ratios that we commonly see, we audit quite a few local governments in the Commonwealth, and I think the county, compared to its peers, is fiscally sound.
Yeah, fiscally sound.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Additional comments from the board? Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Next part of our agenda is the report.
Excuse me?
Yes?
Do we have to approve the audit for this time?
Yes, sir, I'm sorry. Be open for a motion.
I move that the Board of Supervisors approve the audit as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those is there any additional discussion?
I think one thing is, we just got the hard copy, so we have not had a lot of time to review it, but I think we also may have some time constraint that we have to approve it by a certain date. Is that correct?
That's correct. We were late. We have to get it to the Auditor of Public Accounts for the state of Virginia by the end of the month, so we're on target for that, but we just had a little bit delay, about a month delay getting the final document put together to you. And I will say we were able to get the electronic copy to you all last week. You didn't just get it tonight.
Right.
No, we do need, if possible, to try to get it approved tonight so we can.
And if this board or board member has additional questions, that will also be available. And I think we need to do this. I did have one question. How long has RFC been doing our audits?
I think Matt's left. It's been a while. This is the year we have to put it go back out again. So
Okay, that was my
next
question.
audit
I know, because it's always good to do so. And I think there's a limited market as far as firms that do these types of things, but I think it's always good to put it out periodically. And I think what public procurement price is every 5 years.
So we'll be back out again later this year.
And this will be, like I said, this will be on our website once we adopt it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The audit has been approved.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make a comment. I want to thank, and she's left, but Carolyn Stemmel, Connie Oden, Andre Fletcher, and Jim Omendinger from the Finance Department, and also Treasurer Jamie Spiker, and Jamie was here as well. There's a lot of effort that goes into making sure our books are in good order, and I would be remiss if I didn't recognize all of those individuals and a number of others who will help put the audit together. We sincerely thank their efforts.
Thank you, sir. The next item on our agenda is the reports.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If I may ask at your discretion, we have 4 public hearings. They're scheduled to start not before 7:30, and I'm sure there's some people here that would like to present that, so I didn't know if you want to skip over that and do it. There again, it's at your discretion, sir.
And Mr. Chairman, public hearing number 1, I apologize, we should have pulled at the beginning of the agenda adoption, but public hearing number 1, they have withdrawn the application at this time.
Thank you. Have no problem with going through the public hearings right now. Mr. Stanley, you said the first one?
The first one has been pulled, yes, sir.
Second one is the conditional use permit 2020-0001-01, Shane O'Reilly for a short-term forest rental. Matt, you prepared? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. This property is located at 317 Old Barn Lane. identified on tax map 13R as parcel 7. It is zoned agricultural and is located in the Hoskins Farm subdivision. The applicant is requesting this conditional use permit for a short-term tourist rental to rent it out for less than 30 days. In his statement of justification, he states that his family and he have been involved with these short-term tourist rentals for about 10 years, and that this use has allowed them to showcase the county's natural resources and recreational opportunities as a tourist destination. The dwelling was built in 2019 with the intention of the applicant using it for a short-term tourist rental as a home away from home business venture and to support local businesses and restaurants. This property has not had any previous conditional use permits issued for the uses in the agricultural zoning district and no previous zoning violations. It does meet the supplemental regulations for the setback from dwelling to dwelling of 282 feet. The setback requires 100 feet. We did receive a letter, an email from the Hoskins Farm Property Owners Association, Ms. Tiki Finney, who is an immediate neighbor, and she had no objection to the conditional use permit. It does allow for short-term tourist rentals in their bylaws. The Planning Commission did move this application forward with a unanimous approval with the following conditions recommended by staff. Number 1, the applicant shall comply with the Warren County Health Department requirements and regulations, and the maximum number of occupants shall not exceed 8 as determined according to the Health Department operational permit for a 4-bedroom dwelling. Number 2, the applicant shall have the well water tested annually, and a copy of the results shall be submitted to the Planning and Health Departments by the end of the calendar year. This public hearing has been advertised. Adjacent property owners are notified. I did speak with Mr. O'Reilly. I'm not sure if he's actually here. He is. He is here today. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and certainly I think he'd be happy to.
Are there any questions from the board? Open for a motion?
Excuse me, did you open the public hearing?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I have one question, if you will, Mr. Chairman. Does this dwelling connect to the Old Dam Road, up there, or is there a bank down between the?
It actually is just before Old Dam Road. They renamed it Old Barn Road when Old Barn Lane, when Mr. O'Reilly, I believe his father's company, they built a couple of homes up there. So they renamed that essentially driveway to Old Barn Road. Old Dam Road is just beyond that, and that goes up and over to the other side of the river.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
This is not in the floodplain in any way.
Mrs. Mounts, has anybody else signed up to speak?
No one has signed up, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak concerning this?
I don't know if you ever actually opened the public hearing, sir.
The next item on the next on the agenda is the public hearing for the conditional use permit 2020-01-01, Sean O'Reilly, short-term tourist rental. Would the applicant care to come forward and speak?
Hello, good evening. I'm Sean O'Reilly. I currently reside at 4550 Superior Square in Fairfax, Virginia. And I think Mr. Wendling went through most of the stuff I had to say. I just thank you for your time this evening. So, any questions from me?
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for the staff? Is there anyone else that would like to speak? If there's no one in the audience who'd like to speak, final call. The public hearing is now closed. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Supervisors approve the conditional use permit request of Sam O'Reilly for a short-term tourist rental with the conditions as recommended by the Planning Commission and staff.
I'll second that.
Is there any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda for the conditional use permit is for 2020-2-02, Jody T. Lee, private use camping, non-commercial.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this property is located on Burma Road in the Mandalay subdivision, which is just downstream of North Fork Resort. It's identified on tax map 19H, section 1 as parcel 16. Mr. Lee purchased this property in May of 2017, was unaware of the requirement for a conditional use permit for private use camping. He was notified and applied in short order for this permit in order for him to be able to utilize the property for outdoor recreation and have access to the North Fork Resort North Fork of the Shenandoah River in order to fish and kayak. This property has not had any previous conditional use permits issued for it. It's located in an R1 zoning district. He does share a driveway with the adjacent property owner, Mr. Hahn, who is also on the agenda this evening. And they have both maintained and kept their properties in very good condition and made some minor improvements to them. Planning Commission has moved this forward with the following conditions as recommended by staff. The materials associated with campers are to be stored in a neat and orderly fashion during the time of use and are to be removed from the site when not in use. That would be number 1. Number 2, the applicant shall post property with a lot parcel number for fire and emergency rescue services and have an emergency egress plan for removal of recreational vehicles and a portable commode prior to a predicted flood event. This public hearing has been properly advertised. Adjacent property owners are notified. We posted the property. I'd be happy to answer any questions of you. We did notify Mr. Lee and Mr. Hahn that they probably would not be needed this evening. We had nobody come out for or against at the public hearing at the Planning Commission level. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'd like to open the public hearing for the conditional use 2020-02-02, Jody T. Lee, private use camping, non-commercial. Does the board have any questions or concerns for the staff? The public hearing is now open. Mrs. Bounce, has anyone signed up?
No one has signed up, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this particular parcel? If no one would like to speak, this public hearing is now closed. What's the pleasure of the board?
I have a question, if you will.
Yes, sir.
That's a county road that goes all the way down to North Fork Campgrounds. That is correct?
Right.
Does
Homestead Drive and North Fork, yeah.
do the guests have to go across the North Fork Campgrounds to get to this parcel?
Yeah, yes, they do.
And do they have permission to do this right away, or what's the issue?
Yeah, I think they register with the North Fork Resort Management there, and then they just let them know that they're going down to the Mandalay subdivision. It's just a short drive, and then so that whenever I've gone there, I've just notified them. Obviously, I'm in a staff vehicle, but I just let them know I'm going to the Mandalay subdivision.
Do they not have a safety gate at the top where the campers go in and out, and would that become an issue?
They do not have a gate at the top.
Top of the hill before you go into the campground.
Oh, yeah, the campground has a gatehouse with a guard there. So they would have to check in with that guard. Again, I don't know what their particular process is. We've never had a problem or an issue with this come up with them. The primary issues we've had and I won't even say in the past, but they were accessing it from the lower portion of North Fork Resort at one point in time. And that ceased after North Fork Resort put some large boulders in place and kind of prohibited that ability to access. So they use just primarily the one dirt road that's off their
It seems to me that there should be some agreement going forward to use the right of way for the campground for guests going down through that.
I have spoke with Mr. Barnes about that, and he was amenable to that, especially if there was a significant issue with either a flood event coming up or a blockage on the railroad for whatever reason. The railroad does bisect the North Fork Resort and this small subdivision. So, and again, I can speak with Mr. Barnes about that and see what they can do to address that. Yes, sir.
If there is an issue.
Mr. Chair, if I may ask staff a question.
Yes, sir.
Matt, wasn't the Mandalay subdivision there before the North Fork campground? And if such, would they have a deed of easement across that property to get there?
It was there a long time ago. I think it was before North Fork. I would have to check into the deeded easement, but that's probably what they were given, yeah.
Personally, I think they have an easement across it, given the length of time, if they didn't have a recorded easement. How long? 1940s or 50s?
40s or 50s. It's a very old.
It's a private matter, but yeah, it's 15 years, and if they were given a license to do it, then if they just did it without permission, then yeah, that would start the adverse possession clock going for 15 years. But that's a private matter between them, and there's other elements to adverse possession as well, but that is the primary one.
A number of these property owners have owned these properties for a long time. Some of them have recently sold, but they continue to use the very same access road, and it's provided what they've needed to get to their properties.
Any additional questions?
I just wonder, are you actually saying that on occasion the railroad blocks the road? I have never heard of that in this county. Question withdrawn.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to say that?
I think the train runs once a week up through there. That helps.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak upon the call? This public hearing is now closed. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Supervisors approve the conditional use permit requested 30 TV for private use, non-commercial camping with the conditions as recommended by the Planning Commission and staff.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any additional discussion? All those approved say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Fourth item on the agenda is the conditional use permit 2020-02-03, Tony and Shasta Hahn, private use camping, non-commercial.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Again, this is on Burma Road. It's identified on tax map 19H, section 1 as parcels 14 and 15 in the Mandalay subdivision. This property was purchased, one lot in 2017, one lot in 2018. Again, the property owners were unaware a conditional use permit was required for camping. They came in, their intent is to use the property for half the year for outdoor recreation, for gatherings of their family and friends, camping, picnic, and river recreational uses. This property has not had any conditional use permits issued. And the property has been well maintained in the time that the Hahns have owned it. They do have some spaces for parking of campers and a picnic area, Again, they adjoin their driveway as a shared driveway with Mr. Lee. One thing I did fail to mention by approval of this conditional use permits for private use camping, it does establish a recreational use for the properties. This would allow the owners to have one structure built on the properties in the floodplain, and that references our floodplain overlay district ordinance. That would be by permit, no matter the size, and you are limited to 150 square feet. So that also is an option and a reason why some of these property owners have been doing this. The Planning Commission had moved this forward with the following conditions. I can read them again if you'd like. It's the two conditions. Okay. Number one, materials associated with campers are to be stored in neat and orderly fashion during the time of use and are to be removed from the site when not in use. Number two, the applicant shall post the property with a lot parcel number for fire and emergency rescue services and have an emergency egress plan for removal of recreational vehicles and portable commodes prior to a predicted flood event. This public hearing has been properly advertised. Adjacent property owners have been notified. Again, we did notify Mr. Hahn that his presence would not be needed this evening, but I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Does the board have any questions or concerns for the staff? This public hearing is now open. Mrs. Mouse, has anyone signed up?
No one has signed up.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Final call. This public hearing is now closed. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move that the Board of Supervisors approve the conditional use permit request of Tony and Shops Left on for private use camping with conditions as recommended by the Planning Commission and staff.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any additional comments, concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're going to the reports for the board members. Mr. Carter?
Yeah, I think we'll talk about this too under that item of the declaration of local emergency. But, saw the governor's thing today is also, I guess, shadowing what I think the president said, and there's a little bit of difference between the CDC with the COVID-19. It's a fluid thing. And that's why we opened up the back and to allow some space between people. We have to be precautious, but I know next Tuesday we have a budget work session, and I think at that time it's actually a special meeting, and that's to actually advertise the proposed budget, the tax rate, and those things. If I understand correctly, after we do that, we have to advertise for 2 weeks, and then we have a public hearing. And then after the public hearing, we have to wait 7 days until we actually take action on the proposed budget. And I guess what I'm leading up to is, if it comes down to it, they're saying no more than 10 people gathering. For that meeting, we could probably get by. I don't think, and then Mr. Hand, you can weigh in on this, but I don't think we can actually have like a teleconference meeting with all members doing that. Is that correct?
You can only have a teleconference. The governors, you have adopted the electronic meetings provision, which frankly isn't all that great because it still requires a quorum of you here. So you'd have to have 3 members here, and you could have 2 remotely. The governor's declaration of emergency means that localities can meet electronically without a quorum present, but only to talk about how to deal with the local emergency, which isn't that. There is an Attorney General's request because you are similarly situated with lots of other localities, including other people that my firm represents. Everybody's in this extremely nasty boat. And so the question is, what happens if you don't manage to get your budget together by July 1st? And so first of all, there's an Attorney General's opinion request seeking liberal opinions of the emergency powers to deal with these budget issues and pointing out it's budget season and normally this is the worst time to not have a lot of meetings. The technical answer is that if there is no budget after July 1st, Mr. Stanley is not authorized to spend a penny. But there is also provisions for the creation of there is an emergency ordinance provision in the matter of disasters that for 45 days you can do things to continue government, which I would argue would include that. So that's all a little bit extreme, but you're asking a question that many people statewide are asking and trying to deal with. But those are the current tools available to you, and it really didn't help you next week. The 10-person limit is not a legal requirement. It is the governor's recommendation, and obviously we'd like to follow the governor's recommendation. We'd like to have 10 people in this room, but that's not legal. FOIA allows the public to come to meetings, and your work session for FOIA purposes is a meeting. It's not a meeting, not a board meeting where you can take action, but it is a meeting for FOIA purposes. And the public has a right to be there, which is completely inconsistent with the governor's recommendation with respect to the coronavirus. But the governor doesn't have the power to throw away FOIA in this circumstance.
So what you said as far as we adopted the policy, we can call in, but there had to be at least a quorum or 3 members that had to be here physically?
Correct.
So what do we do, draw straws?
Do it any way you want to. And you know that the other part to that is that if you're sick, you can do that as much as you want. If you're not sick, then you can only do it twice per calendar year. So take turns.
So we have the budget schedule set up and it has some leeway within it. And I know in the past we've always tried to get the budget adopted by May 1 because that's when the school lets their contracts out to the teachers.
It also helps your tax collector too.
Well, that was the second thing I was going to say too. And we need to get that in there in order for the commissioner's office to send out the tax bill. So we are under some constraints there as well.
Yes.
And we did meet today on the budget, and I think we preliminarily closed the gap where it does not look like there's going to be any increase in the tax rate. That's still to be decided, but right now I think it looks pretty good. We won't have to do that. The other question I had too, and I think the CAL does this, I think they stream their meetings live. We don't do that.
We are right now.
We are now, right. So we have that capability for the future so these people can tune in and look at it as it happens. Plus you also have the ability to look at it on the website, and also I think if you live in town and you have Comcast or whatever, it's also broadcast there too. So there are opportunities.
And another suggestion, and again, this public has the right, absolute right to come to the meeting unless it's a closed meeting, and that kind of budget deliberation absolutely is not. But you could set up, but it would be voluntary, a call-in. With technology of today, you could have someone, if they had citizens' comments and petitions, they could have an iPad up there with FaceTime, or you could have someone come, call in to discourage people from coming and still allow them to present their views, but they can still come, but that's just another practical suggestion to try and deal with it.
And I appreciate those options. The only thing I'm thinking is the call-in could be good, but unfortunately, and I think I'm starting to be one of those people that aren't keeping up with technology, but there's some people out there that may not have Skype or Zoom or the means to actually do face-to-face over the computer. So you may want to think about that too, as far as what can we do to make it easier for people to do their comments. And the other thing I would think could happen as well would be on our website, everybody has an email address, so they can always voice their concerns that way as well, provided they have emails. So like I said, we'd like to have as much input as possible. And I guess after we have the public hearing, if people would watch it, and they spark some additional questions, concerns, and we'd still always be open to those as well before we actually adopt the budget. Would that be reasonable?
Yes, but again, you can't require me to that, but you can suggest it. You know, the other thing that Doug had talked to me about is potentially having other county rooms available for other groups of people and have people come in and out. You know, we'll figure out who's going to go in what order, and one person will leave, another person comes in. Not perfect also, but better than otherwise.
I wish we could take these measures, but I think we need to provide and look at different options to get the input from the public as much as we can. Because we don't know, like I said, this situation is fluid. It almost changes daily.
Yeah, yes.
And that's all I have, so thank you for the time.
Mrs. Oates?
I'd like to follow up on what Mr. Carter said, and some of my concerns are that if restaurants are closed or people aren't participating, then we're losing tax on food tax and all these things that factor into this budget season. So I think it's premature to say that we've closed a gap, because I'm fearful there's going to be a bigger gap. I'd rather not think that, but at this point, I can't draw any other conclusions. People aren't going to be buying cars. Nobody wants to ride in a car with somebody who might be sick. So anyway, I think that there are some other considerations with respect to the budget. So anyway, besides that, I would like to say that I've attended a lot of meetings. On 3/6, I attended an EDA meeting. On 3/9, I was with the Samuels Public Library Board. I spoke to the Lions Club on 3/10. I attended the tourism meeting on 3/11. And I would just like all of you to know that several of us, we are getting certified as county supervisors. And so we attended our very first class on Friday the 13th. And so we actually, we're going to actually have certifications after our names at 18 months or so. But anyway, so that's all I have.
Mr. Lee, can I follow up on something Ms. Oak said? And just the meal tax, that's an important thing, especially on the quarter. I know I talked to one restaurant here in town, and their receipts were down a good bit on Saturday. The only thing I was going to follow up on was on the quarter, with the agreement we have with the town, they receive roughly 30% of this meals tax. And also get into some of the sales tax too, and other things. But I just was going to suggest that maybe Mr. Stanley can just notify the town to be prepared for this as well if they haven't already thought about it. Because it could impact their budget as well. I'm sorry, that's all.
Mrs. Cullen?
I've attended numerous meetings as well. I continue to go to the town council meetings. People in town are county residents, so I attend those meetings to keep on top of those things. EDA meetings, my committee meetings, as Mrs. Oates said, the three of us are in a certified supervisors class, and got a lot of homework. I got a homework assignment today, so I guess I'll be doing that sometime this week. But continuing to learn and to keep on top of things, and I too am not sure we're at the point of the budget where we can be comfortable, so want to stay diligent on that. Times are uncertain with all this going on, and the economy is taking a hit. We all realize that. The nurse in me wants to remind people that it's not a time to panic. All the run on the grocery stores is, grocery stores are doing well if restaurants are not, that's for certain. But, the best thing you can do, wash your hands. It's a simple thing, but wash your hands. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Paul?
No, Mr. Chairman.
I have nothing right now other than we've had a tremendous amount of meetings. We've had a tremendous amount of meetings this week over the emergency plan that we're trying to put together. Talked to the fire people, we've talked to the sheriff, we've talked to our staff over and over and over again, and we're having meetings tomorrow with the county and the town, and we're just doing everything we can to make this as fruitful of a thing. If you can make it, if you can draw any positive thing to it, it's bringing us together. And we have to just be diligent in doing the things that we're doing, like the separation that we're doing right now. And other than that, I really don't have anything else. It's been an experience, and I believe that none of you can say that you've been through it before. I know we haven't. And we're learning every minute of every day. So that's all that I have. Thank you. Mr. Stanley, is there any more of those?
Yes, sir. First one, I want to share some information from emergency management. As a community, it's important that we all continue to respond conservatively to the novel coronavirus. While we currently have no reported cases in Warren County, as the virus approaches the county, it is recommended that residents seriously consider the following. Most patients with COVID-19 will have mild to moderate symptoms. However, in a small percentage of patients, COVID-19 can lead to more serious or severe illness, including death, particularly among those who are older who have chronic medical conditions. Symptoms include fever, over 100 degrees Fahrenheit in the last 14 days, cough and shortness of breath. Symptoms appear within 14 days of being exposed to an infectious person. COVID-19 spreads primarily through respiratory droplets produced when an infected person coughs or sneezes. In order to reduce the spread of the virus in our community, if you think that you or a family member may have symptoms related to the illness, residents are urged not to show up unannounced in any local medical facility. If you experience the above symptoms, call a primary care physician to discuss your symptoms. You will be telephonically screened by a medical professional and provided medical advice over the telephone. If you meet the Virginia Department of Health screening criteria and require COVID-19 testing, you'll be directed to the appropriate local medical facility for treatment. And if you have general questions regarding COVID-19, please call the Virginia Department of Health Public Information line at 877-ASK-VDH3. That's 1-877-275-8343. And if you're experiencing a true medical emergency, please call 911 and report to the closest hospital emergency room for emergency treatment. To lower the risk of the respiratory germ spread, including COVID-19, VDH encourages the following behaviors. Stay home when you're sick. Avoid contact with sick people. Wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Use a 60% alcohol-based hand sanitizer, only if soap and water are not available. And regularly clean and disinfect, frequently touch objects and surfaces. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Cover your mouth and nose with a tissue or your sleeve when coughing or sneezing. A couple other items. The county is trying to work to remain open for business. Some of the examples of the things we're doing for building inspections, we're encouraging folks to submit their applications, plans, and documents via email to submit them online. Treasurer's Office is encouraging taxpayers to utilize alternative payment methods, including drive-through window, the Dropbox online payment option, and regular old mail. If you need to come in and see them, they're here. They're available by telephone. We'll be putting additional information about that out as we move through this. As I've said, and as the chairman said, this is an ever-changing landscape, and we're trying to be proactive as we can and make sure that we have policies and procedures and things in place should circumstances change. So with that, a couple other items I do want to hit on. Development Review Committee met on February 26th. Committee discussed projects in the county, including six short-term tourist rental conditional use permits that are working their way through the process. The multi-tenant building at Riverton Commons, permits have been received by the Building Inspections Department for Chipotle. The bank building has been demolished out there, and I assume Five Guys plans will be in the works as well. The site plan for the Echoes Warehouse facility is being reviewed by the Planning Department and other agencies. The Timberworks Tree Company has purchased a house on at 404 Fairground Road from the EDA for office space. Projects in town include the Sheet site plan project. Of course, they finished the demo, took that building down, the old Schindler Motel down pretty quickly. And then Big Lots is moving to the Food Lion portion of the Gateway Shopping Center. As was mentioned, our next budget meeting will be 9 a.m. here on March 24th. Fire and rescue grant county staff have completed and will be submitting before this week's deadline. We actually had a week extension due to the coronavirus situation for the FEMA Assistance to Firefighters grant. The grant request 112 self-contained breathing apparatus at a cost of $872,212 and a local match of $79,292. The county closed on the Playback property adjacent to the Catlin Mountain landfill on March 11th. The Tourism Committee met on March 11th. They welcomed Stephanie Lillard with Virginia Tourism Corporation and spoke about various tourism structures around the state. The committee discussed several options regarding the future direction of tourism in the community. They will continue discussions moving forward in order to provide a recommendation to the town and county council and board of supervisors. They plan to have another meeting on March 20th to continue those discussions. Pleased to report that the county received official word that the 3.2 acres of the airport property that will be used for the new fire station have been officially released by the Department of Aviation at no cost to the county. We had included $150,000 in the project budget, which will now be freed up for other capital improvements. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, unless there are any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Mr. Ham, do you have anything?
I don't.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
For Mr. Stanley. You discussed the different ways to pay the property tax, et cetera. But with at least with the credit card, there's like a 2 or 3% convenience fee, is that correct?
Correct, that's what we pay to the credit card company.
Exactly. And there again, if we paid that, it comes out of our revenue stream. And I don't know if you know this offhand, if they can check into it, I don't think you can do an e-check or a debit, you still have to pay that convenience fee if you did it online. And there again, I realize they may not be here to answer that, but maybe we can.
Treasurer's here in the back. Jamie, is that something you want to answer? Or?
Yeah, the picture card is whether you pay at the counter or on the web.
Okay.
So it wouldn't cost them any more to pay online if that's the way they want to pay.
Even, what with the credit card, it would, but if they just use
If they just write a
e-check
check.
or a debit card, it shouldn't cost anything.
A debit or credit card charges the fee?
You will, okay.
Yeah,
But an e-check, you have the capabilities, they just want to put in their routing number and account number?
no.
You do not have that. So the best way probably would be to pay by mail.
Or they could do a bill pay check through their bank.
I think it was mentioned today. I think that, if the interest rate's low, there's a lot of refi financing going on. Is that off?
It sounds like it is, but.
It's on. Anyway, and there again, hopefully we'll come to that, but to do a lot of these refinances, they have to go sometimes to the courthouse areas and all. And like I said, I know the courts have scaled back on some of their trials and those things, but I would just say, and there again, trying to do that, you get things notarized, it makes it a little bit more difficult, but we might want to try to find out if there's some way to at least make that portion accessible, because there again, that's going to impact the economy with the banks, with the attorneys, with the title companies, and all those things. Not to mention how much money people could potentially save.
The state of Virginia actually put out information about all the clerk's offices and how that's being handled. I think they are allowing attorneys to come in and set appointments and stuff. So unfortunately, that's out of our hands. But I think they are trying to make provisions to allow for that to occur.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Stanley, the 6 short-term tourist rentals. Is that in addition to what we paid tonight?
Those were the camping ones, so yeah, these are some, I don't see if Karen's still here, but we've got some working their way through the process, yeah.
Is there any additional comments? Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting held on February 18th, 2020. Are there any additions or deletions? Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on February 18th, 2020 as amended?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held on March 3rd, 2020 as amended. Move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'm sorry, we've got big books tonight. Yeah. Yeah, I'm good. Do we have a motion on the appropriations and transfers?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All not approved, say aye. Motion carries. Approval of the accounts. Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next thing on our agenda is the Warren County Fire and Rescue Live and Fire Training Building. Brandy?
At our meeting on March 3rd, a decision was made to table whether or not to award a contract with the parent low bidder for the Warren County Fire and Rescue Live Fire and Training Building. Since that time, I've done my due diligence and have been in contact with the bidder multiple times, and unfortunately, they've let me know that they will not be able to hold their original price. As anticipated, they stated that their available capacity is becoming more constrained as we moved into the summer and spring construction seasons. They've also been advised that material costs specifically for steel and metals are expected to increase significantly beginning this month. While they have indicated that they would be interested in further discussion and negotiation if we decide to proceed with the project in the future, I would expect that the cost would be considerably higher than the original bid amount. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Did you have any discussion with them as to whether they might be considered doing this next year during their slow time?
I have not got to that point yet. If we chose that, I could talk to them and see if it's possible. We may have to rebid it at that point.
Well, should we not go ahead and ask for a bid on it for their season now?
I might defer that to Mr. Ham if we're allowed to, how much we're allowed to negotiate this at this point.
Well, how long were they required to hold their bid open?
They weren't. There was nothing in there that stipulated it. I contacted them and asked them if they would hold it until we were able to make a decision, and they said they would not be able to do that due to the material cost and their construction schedule.
So when were they informed they were the low bidder?
It was before our meeting on March 3rd. The bids were actually due in January, and we had been in contact with them from that point until it actually went in front of the board, and they were fine with the March 3rd date if we would have awarded.
Right, but so when did they actually learn that they were the low bidder?
I'd say about a week before the meeting. I'd have to check the date on my email exactly. I notified them that they were the apparent low bidder, that the contract had not been awarded, but that it would be presented to our board of supervisors for consideration.
So what date are you talking about?
It would have been
about a week before March 1st?
Yeah, it would have been the end of February.
Okay. Yeah, I guess where I'm stopping with is that although your RFP didn't specify how long the bid had to be open, there might be some state law on that, and we're not that far away from when they were notified that they were the low bidder. You know, I mean, if you can take the position that you can just withdraw your bid immediately when you find out you are not only the low bidder, but the way low bidder, that's defeating the process to me. If they won't honor that contract, you've got to re-procure it. But it's a two-step thing. And the other thing is I've heard the board very concerned about, or maybe I shouldn't say the entire board, but I heard board members concerned about budgets, and probably more so now, and not wanting to spend money that wasn't absolutely necessary. And I don't know what the board's direction is on this, and it seems not real wise to employ me to try and see if we can force them to honor this, if that's what the board wants to do anyway.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Did we ever come to a conclusion on the Class A contractor?
We are allowed to award the contract with them as long as they are partnering with the Class A contractor. Our attorney would look at it, building inspections would look at it, and it would be approved just like if they were the primary.
But have they done that?
As part of their submittal that I sent you guys last time, there's a letter in there showing that they intended to partner with a Class A contractor if they were awarded the low bid. Yes.
It just seems to me that's putting the cart in front of the horse, but that should be a fluid thing. We should know what the cost of that's going to be before awarding, because he's going to have to pay somebody to do that, and we don't have what that cost is built into what their estimate is.
Their estimate does include them partnering with somebody, and our typical contract documents allow for them to subcontract the work as long as we approve it before the contract is awarded.
Additional comments, concerns?
I've made my concerns very clear in the past. We've got things that the fire and rescue needs that I feel is more of a priority than this. The air packs, the firemen should have an extra turnout gear, which I've talked to several people, anywhere from $2,000 to $6,000 for a complete turnout in that area. And the reason they need to is if they go into a fire that has carcinogenic exposure, they shouldn't have to go into, those things need to go through a cleaning process. And they do have DCAM, 5-gallon bucket thing for that, but that's not a thorough decontamination. That's a Band-Aid until it gets totally clean. If that's in the wash and they get another call, they don't have another turnout gear. So air packs, turnout gears, and I've been told the communication system, the radios, are not the best in the world, and that needs to be. So when I look at those things, to me, that needs to come first. We can't put somebody in a training building without those things. So I think we're getting things backward here. So I would move that the Board of Supervisors table the request for further discussion until we get where we need to be with the budget and those things.
I'll second it.
Is there any additional discussion?
Do we really need to table it? I mean, just let it go? From that
agree.
standpoint, because we're going to put it out there again unless you wanted to, try to force them to do this. I don't hear that support for doing that, and I appreciate your comments, but it seems like we don't really have to take any action at this point, and it just goes by the wayside.
Well, they put in for a grant. If they get that grant, we don't have to come up with $1 million. That's why I said table it until we get finished the budget process, they find out if they get that grant, where we are money-wise. Now, if you don't want to table it, you want to tell them they're not getting it at all, then
Well,
that's...
it's just saying that you're gonna have to go through the whole process again regardless, and that would be something I wouldn't see the need to table and just still be up there if we get that grant, which I think is supposed to be probably, I don't know, May, maybe?
Possibly, but where they delayed the submittal of the grants due to the actual interface for the grant program because it's new this year and also with coronavirus, I quite honestly don't see it happening on time.
And again, I think in the future, when we get another bid, it's gonna be
Well, with
more
the
expensive.
economy, it could be a lower bid. I mean, everything is stopping, folks. And this guy might turn around and need this work and come in a little lower or be very glad to do it at this price. You know, nothing's moving right now. So it's to be held captive to, prices going up. Right now, prices are not going up. So I don't know. I wish I had magic ball to look in and predict the future, but I can predict right now what the fire and rescues need. And I don't know, maybe I'm off base, but those things seem like more of a priority than this. And I want them to have this, but they've got to have these other things. That's safety and welfare right there.
No, I just look at it in the standpoint, we got 3 bids, the low bid was $214, the next highest one I think was $320, so I would almost guarantee when they come back, they're gonna be at least under that $320, probably $275, $280, whatever. So that's the only risk we take from not accepting it, and it looks like that day's passed. So again, we'll just have to see. So if you want to table it, we can table it. Otherwise, we'll just see what we do with the air packs and the other the turnout gear and all that stuff, and see how the funds set there. So that's fine. If you want to table it, we can. Otherwise, we'll just look at it. I guess that could be part of when we talk about our goals or capital improvement and see where it sits in that. So however you want to do it.
Mr. Carter, I believe that we should table it for now.
Go for it.
I did second, I made the second, so we do have a motion on the table.
All in favor, say aye.
Tabling indefinitely?
Say again,
Are
sir.
you tabling it indefinitely or a date certain?
The motion was to table the discussion until after the budget process is complete.
Okay, very good, thank you, ma'am.
Roll call.
And that we get find out about the grant. Those 2 things.
Okay. Mr. Carter?
Aye.
Ms. Oates? Aye. Mr. Chairman?
Aye.
Ms. Cullors?
Aye.
Mr. Fox?
Aye.
Thank you. The next thing on our agenda is the consent agenda. Are there any items to be pulled for further discussion?
I'd like to pull 2, 3, and 7, please.
I'm sorry, did you say 2 and 7?
2, 3,
2,
and
3,
7.
and 7.
3, I'm sorry. Now I move that we adopt the consent agenda with the exclusions of items 2, 3, and 7.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Oh, there's one correction that Emily sent out earlier. I don't know if it's corrected on the other agenda,
Yeah.
but the bounties should just be 1 and not 5. So just so that's clarified. But yes, then I approve it if that's a correction.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I wanted to pull, well, actually, I didn't mean to pull 3. Anyway, sorry.
So we should should go ahead and,
Yeah,
if you don't want to talk about item number 2, you should go ahead and approve that.
well, number 2 I did, number 3 I didn't, I apologize for that. Had an ink mark on it that wasn't supposed to be there, sorry. But, no, I thought that everyone should get an explanation, because I've heard a lot of people ask, why the heck are we giving away a truck? So I thought I'd give Sheriff Butler an opportunity to explain it to everyone as the way he explained it to me.
Well, since January, Sheriff Butler, since January, we've been doing a complete inventory of what we have. The ice cream trucks, as everyone knows it, they're very cumbersome and very hard to get into maneuver through the mountains, Blue Mountain, Apple Mountain, and so forth. This truck has high mileage, and we tried to, one of our ACOs tried to actually drive it up one of the stairway, I believe it's stairs to heaven, and couldn't do it. So what we have is we have an F-250 with high mileage, and we can't get rid of them. We tried everything we could to get rid of the ice cream trucks. The Mokai, they say it's faster to paddle with, they would rather have a kayak than they can paddle because it's too cumbersome, and it's officer safety for us on the water. You put one person in it, you get them on the river. It takes 2 to 3 people to get it in and get it back out. It's just not proactive for us. So working with Frederick County since January, we've already received almost $15,000 of uniforms from them. We're also in the process, as y'all may or may not be aware of, we've been doing a lot of grant writing and grant searching. We have 3 brand new deputies, a bomb dog and 2 bloodhounds that are coming. They were grant, pretty much we have about $2,000 invested in them. So what we're looking for is to trade with the truck and the Mokai for cage inserts for our vehicles so they don't cost us $3,000 to $4,000 a piece. And Frederick County, we've been working really well with them. Sheriff Milholland, they don't have a bomb dog, so there's a lot of things we're working together with hand in hand. And they can use it for their dive team. They do a lot of our search and rescue in the river and lakes and ponds. And when I told him what we had, he said they'd love to have it to actually outfit their dive team. So really what it is us working hand in hand with our jurisdictions surrounding us to actually, instead of putting it in a sheriff's cell where we're getting maybe $1,000, $2,000 for it, we actually getting something that benefit for it. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Sheriff Butler.
Well, Ms. Mount, since Ms. Pinkham told numbers, Brandon, your name's on that, would you like to say anything about that, or Mr. Price?
We would need to vote on item number 2 first.
Wait a minute.
We're gonna vote on that one.
Well, we're going to do them individually.
You have to do them individually.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Is there a motion to approve item number 2 on the agenda, consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any further discussion?
And one side.
I didn't hear a second, I apologize.
I don't think there was a motion made.
I did.
She made the motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody else seconded it, I thought, didn't they?
Was there a second made, Mrs. Mouse?
I didn't hear one.
Second. Is there any additional discussion?
Just one other thing, and I guess, yeah, sure, so you don't have to come up. But I just noticed on that item, the previous item where we approved the new vehicles, you also said you're getting rid of some of those vehicles. When we had our budget session today with the 89 International bus, we had the school board talk to us, and they just said that they usually don't get much at auction for that, but they do wind up keeping those for spare parts on the other buses. So I don't know if you might want to check with them to see if it could be any benefit to them for spare parts in the future. It may not be, maybe too old. Okay.
We've been working really hand in hand with the school bus. They've been great for us. We've actually been able to save probably 4 or 5 vehicles from getting deadlined to actually rejuvenating them, so we hopefully get another 2 or 3 years out of them. But yeah, we've been working hand in hand with them.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Yes. Thank you.
Any further discussion at all? All those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, I would be glad to talk about it. So we received a request from Access Independence, Inc. They are a nonprofit organization that promotes independent living by providing services to enhance the quality of life for people with disabilities living in Virginia's Northern Shenandoah Valley. And annually, they do a disability week, not disability, disability awareness week. And this year they're proposing to have that for April 20th through April 26th in the Northern Shenandoah Valley. The focus of this year's disability week is called Building Bridges. The theme was chosen to encourage people to highlight the opportunities that are possible and to realize that a bridge is a planned out accommodation that can make obtainable what may seem impossible. With a bridge, a goal, a desire, a vision, or a place we want to reach can be realized with positive actions and thoughts. We could consider other objects as bridges that span previous gaps and valleys that some folks would have crossed without the thoughtful assistance of folks that helped them realize their vision could be fulfilled. So, Mr. Donald Price, who's the Executive Director of Access Independence, asked that the Board of Supervisors proclaim April 20th through April 26th as the Northern Shenandoah Valley Disability Awareness Week for 2020.
Thank you. I'll make a motion that we accept that request to adopt the proclamation designating April 20th to April 26th, 2020 as Northern Shenandoah Valley Disability Awareness Week. I second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Discussion on item number 7.
I just thought it would be a good idea for I read over it, but not having been part of whatever, just thought Mr. Stanley could walk us through it quickly.
Yes. And in essence, I'm trying to think, Mr. Carter and Mr. Chairman May, y'all were at the last liaison meeting, correct?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
We had discussion at the meeting about the need to update the liaison bylaws. And currently, the way they're worded, meetings are held the third Thursday of every other month. And we have, last year or so, changed that to be quarterly. And so, in essence, our bylaws were not consistent with the changes that the board and council had unilaterally made to our meeting schedule. At the meeting, there was direction for the town staff to make the necessary corrections and send those over to us. And that's what Mr. Tietrich sent over to us. And so basically, the meeting schedule would change to every Thursday, third Thursday of every quarter, except 6 p.m. unless otherwise agreed to by the town council. We've talked about some other things, but that's what really the committee at that time decided to at least correct the meeting schedule.
I didn't realize that was the only, or if any of the other parts had changed, and if we needed to be updated on any of that, so thank you. We accept this as written. Move that the Board of Supervisors concurrently approve the revisions to the Front Royal Warren County Liaison Committee mission statement and policies as proposed and approved by the Front Royal Town County.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're better than halfway through, folks. Thanks. Item number L, which is the Old Dominion Court Services pretrial services grant application. Mr. Stanley?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, joining me tonight is Ms. Kim Chimura from Old Dominion Court Services. So, reading from our cover sheet, the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services administers Pretrial Services Act grants to provide services to Virginia courts. There are currently 33 pretrial service agencies in Virginia providing service to 100 of the 133 localities. Warren County has recently received a letter from the Department of Criminal Justice Services regarding a grant opportunity for localities that currently do not have pretrial services. The governor has included $2.3 million in the biennium budget to expand such services. The county has received a letter from Ms. Chimura, again with Old Dominion Court Services, asking if Warren County would support them applying for a grant for such funding. As stipulated, the grant would not require any local matching funds. It would not require any financial obligations from the county. The county currently provides office space for them in the brick building, little brick building sitting on the front of the courthouse. The grant was received. Frederick County, who is your current fiscal agent, would remain fiscal agent for this grant. There are identified benefits to having pretrial services, including reduced incarceration rates and associated costs. It would also take away some of the drug testing costs the RSW Regional Jail is currently incurring. The use of video conferencing would also reduce the number of inmates being transported by RSW Regional Jail officers for their first court appearance. The board discussed this matter at the work session on March 10. The board posed a couple of questions, including if the judges are supportive and if the defendants are charged with the drug test and lab confirmation. According to Ms. Chimura, if the defendants are not charged for drug or lab confirmation, I'm going to let her speak in a second to the judges. The last thing I want to point out is Mr. Russ Gilkinson. He's in superintendent of RSWs in the back as well, and Russ was here at the work session. With that, Ms. Chimura, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm glad to be here tonight to answer any questions that you might have from
Closer to the mic,
court services and to speak. I did reach out to Judge House, who is our general district judge, and Judge Black, and we've heard affirmative from both. Judge Trump, excuse me.
They can't hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. Kim Chimura, Old Dominion Court Services. I have reached out to Judge Funk, JDR Court, as well as Judge House, General District, and they're both supportive of the services that pretrial would bring to this community. Any questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Sure.
Is the brick building large enough for your needs?
We are very thankful that Warren County provides that building to us, and so yes, it will be suitable for our needs. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Will it be permanently staffed, or will there be staff there available times so where people know when they're there? Or
Well, we have a probation officer that's assigned to that building, and depending on my numbers, but I anticipate asking for 4 full-time employees to cover Warren, Shenandoah, and Page if we're expanding to those 3 jurisdictions. And so there will be somebody there more often than now, which Mr. Guyman is down here about 2.5 to 3 days a week, and then he's in Shenandoah County 1 day a week. And he comes to my office for half a day in Winchester. Mm-hmm.
any additional questions or concerns?
There's no county, this grant doesn't, we don't have to give a contribution towards that with this grant.
There's no requirement for local match, no. Of course, I note the in-kind contribution that you provide in office space. And so that is documented to DCJS currently in our budget. But that would be obviously continued into this new grant, which if we were selected, because there's going to be 9 agencies vying for this money, and it's not going to be enough to fund everybody. So if we're lucky enough to be one of those 9, hopefully that grant will eventually be folded into our existing grant that we receive for pretrial in Clark, Frederick, Winchester, and then probation for Warren, Shenandoah, Page, and the other 3 jurisdictions.
Okay. If you don't get this grant, then you could come back and give us a price of offering this service. Is that how that would go, or?
I could, but we would probably wait until the governor included more funding in to go statewide.
For the future. Okay.
Virginia Community Corrections Association asked for 4.2, and then the governor included 2.1 or 3. But yes, he gave us about half.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions, concerns? Open for a motion.
I move that the Board of Supervisors approve the request to authorize the Old Dominion Court Services to apply for a grant to expand pretrial services to Warren County. This approval is subject to no local matching funds being required.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those approved, say aye. Or additional discussion, I'm sorry. All approved, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the Front Royal Warren County Airport Capital Improvement Plan, the update letter. Mr. Childers.
Thank you, Chairman May, members of the board. Each year, the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, asks for our feedback on our capital improvement projects at the Front Royal Warren County Airport, which may qualify for federal grant funding. The FAA requires a letter from us by April 1st of each year outlining our proposed projects and the estimated cost. I've been working with our consultant engineering firm, Talbot & Ryder, the past couple months to develop our project priorities and cost estimates. This information is used by the FAA for its planning purposes in the development of their future capital projects and budgets. A draft letter with our project priorities was presented to you all at your March 10th work session, and the draft letter is attached for your consideration and approval this evening. The projects and priorities identified are consistent with our adopted and approved airport layout plan, as well as potential future uses at the airport. The Airport Commission is aware and supportive of these capital improvement projects. Based on current guidelines, federal and state grant funding will cover 98% of the projected project costs. The county would be responsible for the remaining 2%. The county's 2% share of each project is and would be budgeted in each individual budget year and are funded by reserves and special project balances set aside for such purposes. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Our total outlay on this is approximately, well, not approximately, it's 2%, correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any additional questions or concerns? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the proposed this capital improvement project at the Front Royal Warren County Airport be approved and direct staff to forward the attached letter to the FAA prior to the April 1st, 2020 submission deadline.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
We have the emergency declaration.
Yeah, and the emergency declaration.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not write it down. That's okay. Do you want to talk about this before I bring it up, or do you, whatever you like, sir? Why don't you come on up and talk about it, and we'll then follow up with what we've got to say.
All right, good evening, Mr. Chairman and everyone. What we are recommending to the board this evening is that we go ahead and declare a local emergency. Recently, Page County and Shenandoah counties went ahead and declared. Specifically, we want to declare for two main reasons. One, although we haven't had any confirmed cases in Warren County yet, It's a matter of time. So we want to be able to be prepared for federal reimbursement under qualified expenses. In order to do that, we have to declare a local emergency. The other two conditions for that we talked the other night at the work session is the governor and the president declared it. They both have. So this would be the last piece that would allow us to do that. And then finally, it will allow many of our department heads, the county administrator, to go ahead and finish putting policies and procedures in place, such as the liberal leave, sick leave, etc., telework, that we wouldn't normally do so that we could effectively deal with the emergency.
Is there any questions for Mr. Farrell while we get up here? Sir?
Careful motion.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Supervisors adopt the proposed declaration of a state emergency due to novel coronavirus COVID-19 effective March 17th, 2020.
I second that.
Any additional discussion?
Since we just got this today, it will be posted on the website somewhere or the other as far as the declaration.
It can be, yes.
I think it would be a good idea.
I'll post it.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm also going to read it if everybody will be patient with my reading. Declaration from Warren County of a local emergency by the local director of emergency management due to the coronavirus and consistent of the Board of Supervisors of Warren County. Whereas the Commonwealth of Virginia is monitoring an outbreak of a respiratory illness referred to as the coronavirus, which is spread from Wuhan Hebei Province, China, to more than 80 other locations internationally, including the Commonwealth. The Virginia Department of Health has been working with local, state, and federal officials, healthcare and emergency management experts, and various state agencies to form a CVD-19 task force to prepare for and respond to this threat. Given recent confirmed occurrences of the COVID-19 within the Commonwealth and in neighboring states, localities, as well as information from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, it is anticipated that the disease will continue to spread. And whereas on March 12, 2020, the Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia declared a state of emergency in the Commonwealth, and whereas on March 13th, the President of the United States declared a national emergency in the United States of America. Therefore, the Chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Walt May, as the local Director of Emergency Management, the local Director, has declared that a local emergency exists in Warren County pursuant to Code of Virginia 44-146-21. Therefore, the Warren County Board of Supervisors consents to the local director's declaration of local emergency in the Warren County pursuit of Code of Virginia 44-146.21. Warren County must continue to prepare and coordinate our response to the potential spread of the COVID-19. A communicable disease of public health threat. The anticipated effects of the COVID-19 consist a disaster as described in 44-146-16 of the Code of Virginia. Accordingly, the local director of the Board of Supervisors directs Warren County to render appropriate assistance to prepare for this event, to alleviate any conditions resulting from the situation, and to implement recovery and mitigation operations and activities so as to return impacted areas to prevent conditions as much as possible. Emergency services shall be conducted in accordance with 44-146.13 of the Code of Virginia. In order to marshal all public resources and an appropriate preparedness response and recovery measures, the local director and Board of Supervisors orders, concerns, and consents to the following actions. implementation by the county and local agencies of the Warren County, Virginia Emergency Operations Plan as amended, along with other appropriate county and local plans. Activation of the Warren County Emergency Operations Center as directed by the Director of Emergency Services, Coordinator of Emergency Services, to coordinate the provision of assistance to county and local governments and to facilitate emergency services assignments to other agencies. Authorization for the heads of department in benefit of the county and the local governments as appropriate, and with concurrence of the county administrator, town manager to waive any county local requirement or regulation and to enter into contracts without regard to normal procedures or formalities and without regard to application or permit fees or royalties. All waivers issued by the county and local agencies shall be posted on their websites. Authorization of a maximum of $200,000 in county sum sufficient funds for county and local government missions assigned and county local response and recovery operations is authorized and coordinated through the county administrator and direction to seek to recover such funds pursuant to Stafford Act 42 USC 5121 et seq. The declaration and consent shall be effective until amended or rescinded by further declaration. The declaration will continue until such time as the Board of Supervisors feels that the local situation does not warrant continuance of the state of emergency due to the novel coronavirus, COVID-19. Be it further declared and ordered that during the existence of this emergency empowers, functions, and duties of the Director of Emergency Services and the Coordinator of Emergency Services of Warren County shall be these prescribed by the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia and the ordinances, resolutions, and approved plans of Warren County in order to mitigate the effects of said emergency. It will be adopted March 17th, 2020. I will sign it, Walt Mabe, and I will also, as the local Director of Emergency Management, and Walter J. Mabe, Chairman, Warren County Board of Supervisors, and it will be attested by Doug Stanley, Clerk of the Warren County Board of Supervisors. Any other concerns or questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, and this is to Mr. Ham. So my concern is with C on the back, that we are authorizing department heads to act on behalf of the county and the concurrence of the county administrator to waive county local requirements or regulations. And I just need to understand what the legal, what am I giving up here?
Everything.
Yeah, I don't want to give up our right to vote on these things, and so I need to understand what that means.
Mr. Farrell may be able to answer that a little bit better.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell.
Mr. Hayfield backed me up. But essentially what this does is under county policy, our procurement policy, I think it's broken down between under 2,500 to 10,000, 10,000 to 20, and then 20. What this does in time of emergency is now we don't have to get 3 quotes for a particular item or items, and that's especially critical now because stuff is scarce. So if you have a source of gloves, of masks, of whatever you need to get it. And that's what this allows us to do. We're also receiving guidance daily from the Virginia Department of Emergency Management that gives us FEMA guidance as well on this very topic.
Okay.
And I'll be getting way more information than I want on this in the future. Is that, Mr. Hayden, is that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's procurement. I mean, there's some other things, but really it's procurement. So, which, I don't know if practically speaking actually would cost you any more money in this situation, but that's what it is.
Okay. I was concerned about that as well. It sounded like we were given contracts and free will, so that That makes me feel better.
It just makes the process easier.
I understand.
And I think, and certainly what we've done in the past is, part of Rick's job is to keep a running spreadsheet tally of everything that would fall under that. You know, we obviously are not hoping to have any significant expenses, but we just don't know what the next few weeks and next few months are going to bring us.
Thank you, Mr. Kerr.
Any additional comments?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
In all that you just read, did you declare the emergency in that statement?
Yes, sir, I did.
Since I attended the work session on discussing this, was it not necessary for the board then to confirm your statement of emergency? And that hasn't been done?
That's what this resolution, that's what this declaration does.
That's what the piece of paper
It does,
that does. Gives me the signatures on the back of the.
Doesn't the board have to affirm that?
Yes, we've got a motion in place right now to be able to do that.
What it's, you know, you don't have it in front of you, but I'll read a couple of portions. Therefore, the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Walter J. May, is the local director of emergency management and declares that a local emergency exists in Warren County pursuant to Code of Virginia 44-146.21. And in the next section, therefore, the Warren County Board of Supervisors consents to the local director's declaration of local emergency in Warren County. And the state code on this basically says that precisely, which is that the local director, who is the chairman, according to our emergency management plan, makes the direction with the consent of the Board of Supervisors. And that consent could happen up to 45 days later, but in this circumstance, we're doing it all together.
So will there be a vote by the supervisors
Yes.
now on that?
Yes.
That is the question. So
Yeah, I think we're getting ready to do that now, so I think, is the motion on the table?
Excuse me, go ahead.
Yes, it is.
I'm done.
There is a second.
Would you like a roll call, Mr. Chairman?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Fox?
Aye.
Ms. Colors? Aye. Mr. Chairman?
Aye.
Ms. Oates? Aye. Mr. Carter?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. We'll go ahead and do it. Wait a minute. We've got a general public consent period first. Our next item on the agenda is for a general public comment period, which is 15 minutes. It's for, the general public comment period is an opportunity for the citizens to give input on relevant county issues which are not on the board's agenda and is not intended as a question and answer period. I want to follow up with that again. We allow you to speak on anything that you want to right now, and we welcome it, but please do not direct your derogatory comments to any one individual or to the group. We would appreciate that. And Mrs. Mouse, has anyone signed up?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Jim Gent?
I don't know if I can quite follow that act of declaration here. Jim Jen, 200 Kendall Court, from Royal, Virginia. I just want to say I'm really pleased with what I'm seeing with the board. We're seeing a lot more openness. Please continue. In that respect, this emergency brings that to light a little bit more, and your question and your concerns are also my concerns. When you turn over an open checkbook to people, it scares me. Please make sure that it follows up. I would like to thank the VDOT. One of my things tonight was the VDOT came out and did a wonderful job of clearing our road, Howellsville Road. Did a tremendous job of brushing out the road so that we've got some beautiful road on there now. I have one concern. I would like to see a hidden entrance sign right at the curve of Hardesty and Howellsville, or something in there, because that road is a danger. We've already had one school bus accident there before you had put in that rail guard there. And it is a danger. I would like to see something done with that curve, because if you're coming out of Hallsville or Hardesty Road, you can't see either direction. VDOT did a good job of brushing that off on the one side. The other side, they can't. I don't think it can be done because there's a stream in it, and I know that's going to be running into problems with probably a butterfly of some sort that'll be in the way of that. Other than that, thank you again. It's very, very interesting to see, and we're happy to see it. I'm happy to see it continue. I am looking forward to seeing more openness. One of the things that I haven't seen yet, but I push for it every time I see it, every time I say something, I'd like to see in your agendas some form of, when you're going on TDYs or trips next month, not this month or not last month, but next month. I'd like to know when you're doing that, just for my own information of saying, why are we doing that? So I can ask that question. Thank you.
I think I understand your question. Just want to make sure.
Yes.
So if I've got to go to Richmond for a class on leadership or whatever.
Yeah.
You want to know?
I'd like to know that.
So do you want that on the monthly calendar that goes out, or?
I'd like to, if you have on a calendar, I'd like to see that.
We typically don't. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for other people, but I don't let everybody know what I'm going to do every day.
I understand that. I'm primarily concerned with the major trips that you do TDY for the county. What you
They've
do
all
on
been
your own.
canceled at this point.
Cancel them, yeah.
We won't be going.
We're not going anywhere for a while.
I understand that. But that has been a situation of concern.
The term is junk.
In the last year, a couple of years. So I would like to see that ahead of time, so that we can provide input on, at least in the form of a question of why, or what is it doing for our county.
Okay.
Typically, we would go for educational purposes. I mean, we've got 5 classes that we'll have to attend that are outside. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and we'll see what we can do to come up with that. I don't know that there's an easy way of doing that.
And I've been attending a lot of your meetings, and I understand it's an education and a half. I'm getting much smarter.
I can show you on my phone.
I understand.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Mrs. Bounce, anyone else like to speak?
No one else has signed up. Hold on. Oh, we have 2.
Yes, sir.
Which one? Mr. Daly.
Mr. Daly, you want to speak next? Yes, sir.
Gary Kushner, Special Road in Browntown. I'm always looking at online on your site to see what you have on the agenda. And when I see things on the consent agenda, where would I go to get further information on it? Like, I was concerned about the vehicles being given to somebody else, thinking, hey, I'm looking for a kayak. Maybe that ought to be made available for the public to purchase if I can get it for $50 instead of giving away something that I've already paid for as a taxpayer. Where can I get information about the background on things that are consent items?
Mr. Shannon, do you want
That's part of the packet. So the packet is actually produced and put online. Emily, Friday morning?
So typically the agendas are posted on either Thursday afternoon or first thing Friday morning, but everything included in the agenda has been provided by the department head who is requesting the item. So they typically provide supporting documentation behind the cover sheet so that the board is well informed to make their decision. But if there's additional information that you would like,
So when I click on agenda for today,
yes.
I'm seeing it under subsections.
It's an entire PDF. Yes, it's split out by bookmarks, and
Okay.
you just click through the bookmarks, and each individual item is up there. But if you have any further questions, you can ask the department head that's requesting the item.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And it seems like y'all are way ahead on dealing with the budget and the effect of the coronavirus issues on your projections for the upcoming year, because you've got the hospitality industry that's not going to be getting as much tax revenue that you may have estimated. And the beep hole tax is probably going to be affected because the businesses aren't going to be making the kind of money that they were expecting. So my only recommendation is that we use the worst case scenario figures in our budget estimates so we don't end up coming up short anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else, Mrs. Miles? Oh, Mr. Daly, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ed Daly, 1208 Odin Street. I have to briefly make a comment on what the gentleman was telling you about when you are going someplace, etc., to let people know ahead of time. I was told not to do that years ago, and to come back and tell everyone wherever I went, etc., and what I did, etc. No secret about it. But do not tell people in advance, just to protect your own personal family and property. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sheriff, can I
Yes,
say
sir.
something I ain't going to think of?
Yes,
Can I
sir.
Back up. Well, see, we're getting down here to next to the end. I'd like to reiterate, Harold Bagley, 327 Liberty Hall Road, Front Royal, Virginia, 22630. I'd just like to reiterate before you get on to the next thing. The majority of the people here don't approve of keeping the county administrator. And I'd like for you to take that in deep consideration and not do it. Thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Daly. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Linda McDonough, 1205 High Top Road, and with all the corona and all this kind of stuff going on, I'm not afraid of that type of stuff, but I brought in some stuff about Shenandoah Farms, and I have 4 copies. I'm sorry I don't have 5, but I only have 4, and I just wanted to go through real quick that it states here, this is the Shenandoah Farms Sanitary District Capital Improvement Plan of 2021. It was presented by Bob Childress at the Shenandoah Farms meeting at the beginning of this year sometime. It says VDOT Rural Addition Revenue Sharing Funding Projects is, I think it's $6,584,793. It says the Shenandoah Farms estimated cost share is $1,912,33.6. And it says all other projects, $790,873. So the total cost is $7,375,668. And in this little packet here, it does list the different phases that they want to do. And it tells you exactly the roads, it tells you how many miles they want to do, and what the cost is for all the different projects. I did bring this up at either a work session or a meeting last time. And so I wanted to give those to you so that you could see. And then the years, because the county has taken over the farms, roads, and supposedly mowing, dams, all this kind of stuff, okay? So And they did it 10 years ago, or no, it took us 10 years. And so in the year, year 13, there was 2 road revenue share projects put in. 14, there was 3. 16, there was 3. 17, there was 6. 18, there was 3. And by golly, this year there was 3 new ones put in on the list for the road revenue share projects. And then on this piece of paper, it talks because they want to raise our unimproved lots. Now they're unimproved. A lot of these have no driveways, no nothing. A lot of the people don't even really come up and look at their properties. They want to raise them up to what our lot fee is, our improved lots. And it says 1920 tax rate, 265 per unimproved to 305 for unimproved per lot. And then the lot numbers, the current lot numbers, we have 2,803 current lots, was 1,585 are unimproved. And so that's 1,218 that are improved. So obviously we have more unimproved than we do improved. And so then at the very bottom, it states that they want to raise the rate to make the unimproved lots the same rate as the improved by $40. So obviously, that's really going to put some people out, except unless you're a builder, where you own quite a few lots, and then you only pay the Warren County fee and get by with not paying the sanitary district fee. If we had everybody that pay the same, because I have 2 unimproved lots, and we've never been able to get by with not paying the sanitary district fee until we develop that lot. And I did put in here a...
Linda, excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Have you got, are we close to being finished?
Yes.
Okay. We've got a limited amount of time.
Well, I know other people did talk and take up some time too, but I'm just sort of wondering on the budget, because we give of our tax money to the Shenandoah Farms Board, it's like $70,000 or $80,000, and on their budget they have on here that for dams and lakes, I can't find it, but you'll see it on there. They have dams and lakes and how much they spend, when I was sure that the county took over our dams and lakes. So why are we giving them that money? And it also states on the mowing, where I was pretty sure that the Public Works is doing our mowing now. And so why on earth are we giving that much to Shenandoah Farms for the board, for one building? So is it okay if I take it up and hand it, and then you can pass them on? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, happy St. Paddy's Day. My name's Dee Schools. I live at 467 Freeze Road. I just want to touch on one thing that Linda McDonough said. I want to make sure everybody understands that the $1,912,336, that's Shenandoah Farms' 25% of the rural road revenue sharing projects. The county is also responsible for 25%. So that means the county would be responsible for $1.9 million on Shenandoah Farms roads. The Shenandoah Farms Board, which doesn't represent all of my community, but a few, was asked to approve this for the year 2020-2021. So that's $1.9 million. If you're looking for cost savings, I understand VDOT's scaling back on their projects due to coronavirus too. So you might want to look into those to help your $700,000 shortfall. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? Final call. The general public comment period is now closed. Go ahead.
We'll now go to the closed session, and I move the board enter into a closed meeting under the provisions of Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act for the discussion or consideration of the assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, and resignation of a specific public officer of the public body. I further move that discussion be limited to candidates for appointment to the Warren County Board of Zoning Appeals and the County Administrator.
We're now in closed session.
Just make a motion.
Need a second and a roll
And a
call.
roll call.
I'll make a second.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I led you astray that time.
Mr. Carter?
Aye.
Ms. Oates?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman?
Aye.
Ms. Colors? Mr. Fox?
Now we're in closed session.
All right.
Here's your 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
I move that the board certifies to the best of each member's knowledge only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under section 2.2-3711A1 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting of a public body.
I second it.
Any concerns?
Mr. Fox?
Aye.
Ms. Colors?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman?
Aye.
Ms. Oates?
Aye.
Mr. Carter?
Aye.
I move that the written employment agreement of June 30th, 2015 between Warren County and Mr. Stanley not be renewed and be allowed to expire by its own terms on June 30th, 2020, and that upon such expiration, Mr. Stanley continue to be employed at will without a written contract as county administrator at his current salary, and that for so long as Mr. Stanley continues to be employed, his deferred compensation shall continue at its current rate, that he be allowed to use his county vehicle, and that he be allowed to teach as he currently does.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Carter?
Aye.
Ms. Oates?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman?
Aye.
Ms. Colors?
Aye.
Mr. Fox?
Aye, but I'd like to see this contract renewed.
Is there any additional discussion?
Nope.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I move to adjourn this meeting.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?